Chicago's former mayor now has a front row seat to the inner workings of a much smaller municipal government.
To appoint Lori Lightfoot as special investigator for the village of Dolton. Motion passed.
The former federal prosecutor turned mayor will now be a paid investigator, digging into the details of Dolton's multi-million-dollar deficit and alleged misdeeds of Mayor Tiffany Henyard.
I will follow the facts where they lead without bias and reserve comments from this night forward until the work is complete.
Lightfoot's to-do list is long, including finding millions of dollars in unpaid bills and a lavish village-funded trip to Las Vegas for Henyard and a few trustees and village employees last year.
All allegations of misconduct and all internal investigations, if any, along with any village, state, and federal law violations.
Frustrated and financially strapped, Dolton taxpayers have questions about this $400 per hour investigation.
I'm a very determined person. We are prepared to do what is necessary to get to the facts.
But whatever Lightfoot finds, the former prosecutor lacks any authority to bring anything more than information.
There's a raging debate on whether or not the hiring of Lori Lightfoot has made a difference in the investigation against Tiffany Henyard, or if it was a waste of time and money. But today, we will find out why she is the reason the FBI action has exploded. Gang, it's time. Let's go political. Welcome back, gang, to the Go Political channel. I am Carlton Flowers, and we got a great show for you today. So, in the previous videos that I posted, I have been getting a ton of comments about the hiring of former Mayor Lori Lightfoot by the city of Dolton. And the responses mostly fell into two camps. First camp: this is a great move. Lori will definitely move the needle and get things done. Camp number two: $400 an hour is way too much. And this was wasted money because the FBI is already investigating the situation. So in this video, I'm going to tell you why I think this was a good move on behalf of the good Dolton Trustees, and it will be based on my own experience. I've got some good stories for you. My experience as a former government worker turned consultant. So here's what we will cover. Number one, Lori's background and qualifications. Number two, the $400 per hour fee. Is this a value or is it not? Number three, my own experience as an ex-government worker and my value as a consultant. Number four, the considerations that clearly show that her work has moved the needle. And finally, number five, whether or not she is the primary reason that we have seen so much action as of recent from the FBI. So let's get it started. First of all, let's jump into the background. Lori Lightfoot's background. So she was the mayor from 2019 to 2023 in the city of Chicago. And as a mayor, she had policies and situations that didn't really sit too well with the city of Chicago, and she lost in her re-election bid. Now, me personally, I was not a fan of her policies and actions as a mayor. There were several things that went on that I disagreed with. But that's just my opinion, because I am a little bit more conservative leaning, and I'm against a lot of the crazy things that we see going on in Chicago, like the immigrant situation. You need to watch my prior video if you didn't see it on what's happening in the South Side on that topic. Now, let's go back a little bit further into time. Lori Lightfoot as the Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Illinois from 1996 to the year 2002. So She was involved in a range of federal cases, including drug crimes and corruption. She collaborated with the FBI and assisted with Operation Silver Shovel to curb corruption in the city of Chicago. And she prosecuted former Chicago Alderman Virgil E. Jones for what? For corruption and tax violations. So that's the background. All right, moving right along. How about this fee of $400 per hour? Is that too much to pay for an attorney? Well, let me give you a little bit of general. So Illinois lawyers charge between $155 and $485 per hour. The average is $305 per hour. So the experienced criminal defense lawyers, those are the ones in the $300 to $485 range. But well-known lawyers can get upwards of $500 an hour. And I have even heard that there are some super lawyers, that charge as much as $1,000 per hour. Okay, so we're going to get back to that. Let's just keep that in mind. So off the cuff, just from what I've told you, $400 is pretty reasonable for a person that has an extensive background directly related to a case that they are working. Okay, let's move on. The reasons why I think hiring Lori Lightfoot was a smart move. Now, initially, I was against it. I was like, oh my God, what are they thinking? What did the trustees do? And I immediately got on the phone with my good man, Edward Steve. Shout out to Ed. And I said, Ed, what's going on, man? Why are they doing this? Lori Lightfoot, of all people? So he explained to me the reasoning, and I was kind of shocked. And I thought, well, maybe I need to think about this a little bit, even though my mind was not immediately changed. But I was surprised to hear the reasoning and how much time they spent and the fact that they grilled Lori Lightfoot before they made the decision. They dug in deep. Now, let's talk about my experience as a government regulatory engineer and as a consultant. So then we'll relate this, shine a little bit of light on my background, and maybe you can relate that to Lori Lightfoot. So I worked for the APCP, that is the Air Pollution Control Program for the Missouri Department of Natural Resources for 19 years. And I was the compliance assistance engineer. And I helped industry like major manufacturing plants, the agricultural industry, you name it. I helped them with compliance issues and for responding to notices of violation when they got busted down by our enforcement section. And I helped them to get back into compliance and also for securing air pollution construction permits. So what I noticed during my time as a compliance assistance engineer is that the big consulting engineering firms out there, I won't name them, but you could probably recognize the names of the biggest firms. I noticed that they were charging a lot of money, and they would put these big, thick packets together. They could be 2 and 3 inches thick, and the majority of it was either not useful or the information and stuff that they were filling out on the forms was just plain wrong. And so they would get to a point where they were at a deadlock because the construction permit application had tons of red marks and the reviewers could not get the permit finalized. And there would be a lot of arguing back and forth. And then they would send me in. Now I could sit down, have a meeting with the consultants in a facility and flip through this big thick stack of sheets and say, you need this, change this, add that, toss this out, not necessary, clarify this area, change this on the forms. And then by the time I was done, I could wrap up what had taken months of arguing. I could wrap that up in one day where they could turn in that permit application and it would be considered complete and roll into review. Now, let me give you a specific example. There was a company, and I won't say the company, it was in Sedalia, Missouri, and they manufacture big truck beds, dump truck beds, and they also make the big chipper boxes so that when you are shredding tree branches from tree trimming, you have a chipper box that all of the shavings go into. So they would manufacture these big dump truck beds and these chipper boxes. And they also made boom cranes, okay? So they had a consultant that they had hired to help them get a permit because they did not get their permit before they started this construction activity or manufacturing activity. And their consultant was charging $175 an hour. He had tons of experience, like 30 or 40 years of experience, and the permit application was stymied. They had spent a year trying to get the permit through, and I was called to the scene. So I met with the company, and I quickly figured out all of the problems. Number one, they were using the wrong permit application forms because there are tons of forms. Oh my gosh, there's probably a couple hundred forms that you have to use to apply for an air pollution permit when you are a manufacturing facility. And he was using the wrong forms. So I got the right forms out, and then I walked through the plant, analyzed the processes, looked at all the equipment and the materials, the paints, the welding, the solvents, the hazardous materials that were being used. And I was able to enter that into the right forms. And after 2 meetings, I was able to take that permit application back to our office to the permits section, and it was considered complete. A few weeks after that, the permit was issued. Now, let's think about this. After I retired from the state of Missouri, I decided I need to get into consulting. And I decided I'm going to charge $200 an hour. So, for $175 an hour and stretching out 1 year to end up with a permit application that has the wrong forms and was not being finalized, what do you think the better value was? $175 an hour or $200 an hour, where I could get the entire thing completed within a matter of 1 to 2 weeks? Which one is the better value? Okay? Well, my experience working directly with the regulatory agency and the enforcement staff gave me an advantage. Why? Because I know exactly what they needed in order to get a permit application finalized and make a company legal to commence with their manufacturing activity. Now, $200 an hour, a lot of people say, whoa, that's a lot of money, but it's not. I remember at one point when I was working for the state, I did this big, massive spreadsheet for a defense contractor that makes parts for big airplanes. All right. And I had this great big spreadsheet that managed all of their 300 paint coatings and chemicals used to put the paint that is necessary, that has to perform well on these airplane parts. After I had completed that, they used the spreadsheet for several years, and then they decided that they wanted to pare it down and change it a little bit. And instead of coming back to me, they hired a consultant, a data management consultant. Guess what this consultant charged to just pare down the spreadsheet that I created? They charged $3,000 per hour. Can you believe that? $3,000 an hour for the same work that I was doing, only being paid $25 an hour as a government employee. Now, how do they get away with charging so much? It's because of their experience and how quickly and efficiently they can get the job done. All right, I digress. Let's jump on to the considerations with the Tiffany Henyard and Dolton situation and the FBI that's on the case. Here's the things that you need to consider. First of all, the FBI has lots of other work to do, not just the Dolton situation. You think that Dolton and Tiffany Henyard and Thornton Township are the only things on their plate? Well, that's where you're wrong. They've got a lot of other work to do, and they've got to balance their efforts and resources, the employees, across several other investigations to maintain public safety and uphold the rule of law in the Northern District area. So the office, I believe, is in Springfield. That's where they're located. And they're stretched across several other cases and counties. Now listen to this. Here's the total amount of counties, besides Cook County, that this same office has to deal with on a daily basis. They include Adams, Brown, Cass, Christian, DeWitt, Greene, Logan, Macoupin, Mason, Menard, Montgomery, Morgan, Pike, Sangamon, Schuyler, and Scott County. That's a lot of counties, guys, not just Cook County. So for all those counties, they've got other cases going on, and they have to cover it all. Cases that include violent crimes, white-collar crimes, cyber crimes, terrorism, organized crime, civil rights violations, and counterintelligence. So a lot of work has to be done on this Dolton case, right? Now you got this FBI office that's spread across all these other counties and cases, and then we have Tiffany Henyard and the big, huge, stinking mess that she has created. Now let's think about this. In order to bring Tiffany Henyard to justice, there's a mountain of information and records and details and evidence that has to be dug up by the FBI office, who is spread across all those other counties and all these other types of cases. The office can't just drop everything they're doing and focus on Dolton. They have other work that has to be done. Now, let's get back to Lori Lightfoot. So she comes on as a paid investigator, and the biggest complaint is people are saying, well, she doesn't have any authority to drop indictments or to press charges. All she's doing is digging up information, and the FBI is already on the case. They're already working on it. So we have kind of crossed that off, the fact that the FBI can't just focus on this case. And we have also considered that there is a mountain of information that has to be dug up for this case to present the best argument before you even step foot in the court. So as a paid investigator, what is her job to do? She's not being paid to prosecute, even though she was a former prosecutor, okay, working in the same office that is doing the work right now. Think back, just like me, I worked in that office at the Department of Natural Resources. I know the people, all right? So here we've got the task at hand for Lori Lightfoot, which is what? Dig up millions of dollars in unpaid bills, dig up all of the information from those illegitimate trips that she took, dig up all of the details and evidence regarding the Andrew Holmes situation, and to dig up information on all the employees and contractors that were involved in the corruption. So then we've got to come to a point where we can present a comprehensive and clear case for a successful indictment, which hopefully will end up in convictions. Now, while I was working, I knew all of the enforcement staff in all of the regions in the entire state for the Missouri Department of Natural Resources. When a company would get busted and then they would bring me in, all I had to do was pick up the phone and call my friend Bill, who was the head of the Northeast region, and say, hey, Bill, I'm on the task. Can you press pause and give me a chance to get these people's act together, and then we'll get them back into compliance? Sure, Carlton. Thank you very much. We're so stretched. We have so much work to do. We would appreciate your help. Now, when it came to companies that did not want to get back into compliance, they could enlist me to gather the evidence and information needed for the enforcement section to quickly bring that company to justice to shut them down. Now, how about Lori Lightfoot? Do you think that it's possible that she might be well known in that Northern District office where she could pick up a phone and say, hey, here's the information that I'm putting together, or what are you needing, or where do you need help with while you're stretched across all these other cases? What is it that you're struggling with? What information do I need to dig up? Do you think that's possible? In addition to that, do you think that Lori Lightfoot might have a little bit of insight on how you're supposed to gather information and place it in the right format that it gives the greatest chances for a judge to make a decision and bring a conviction? What do you think about that? I think the answer is yes. Now, we have noticed that in the past few weeks, ever since the appointment of Lori Lightfoot, we have got an explosion of actions on the part of the FBI. We have seen the FBI on site, in the doors, in Dolton, in the Village Hall building. We have seen FBI agents in the building at the Thornton Township Hall. We have seen indictments coming down where 29 employees have been listed, where they've got to give up information. We have seen indictments coming down demanding that Tiffany Henyard give up the information about the Tiffany Henyard Doesn't Care Foundation. We've seen tons of action. It has been an explosion. Now, some people are going to say, well, the FBI was already doing this, so what did Lori do? She didn't do anything. Is it a coincidence? Do you think it's just mere coincidence that we have seen an explosion of activity since this hiring? I think not. Now, no matter what you think of Lori Lightfoot as a mayor, you might be like me where you disagree with the majority of what she did and how she ruled as a mayor. But we cannot turn a deaf ear to the arguments that she was a successful prosecutor. And here's the key: she knows the process, and she knows the people, she knows the courts, she knows the judges. And with that comes credibility. Now, when Lori Lightfoot digs up this information and puts it in the proper format to present, to go before a judge, do you think it's going to come with a little bit more attention and respect from that judge, knowing that this individual used to work in this capacity? Do you think that Lori Lightfoot might have a little bit more of experience than the individuals who have been hired that are working in that Northern District office since she had worked there? I'm thinking probably so. So the debate rages on, but I think now we can determine that, yes, Lori Lightfoot has moved the needle. Now, I'd sure like to know your thoughts. Do you still think that Lori Lightfoot has not made a difference? Now that I've explained consultant fees, do you still think that $400 an hour is too much? After I've explained that a person who charges an hourly fee that has the experience from the inside, who can put that information together so much more quickly, efficiently, and accurately, do you still think $400 an hour is too much as compared to a different attorney that did not formally work as a successful federal prosecutor? Now, I respect all opinions, and the debate will probably rage on. And if you don't think that she has made a difference, post it in the comments. I'm curious to know what percentage of people will still stay in the camp of those who think that this was wasted time. Or have I slightly changed your mind? Have I changed the way you view the situation? knowing that we are not there at ground zero, we're not on the board of trustees who sat down with Lori Lightfoot and grilled her in the initial interview, we can't say that we really completely understand why the decision was made. But is this enough for us to assume that it was the right decision? I want to know from you. Let's discuss it and sound off in the comments, and we'll keep it civil. And it's okay if you disagree. I can accept that. I'm just curious to know. And in the meantime, we will enjoy all of the action going on right now, and I'll have some rather hilarious updates for you as I pull up old footage of Tiffany Henyard and her incredulous activities, and then compare and contrast that to what's going on right now. And then we'll build up to May the 20th when that information has to be put in, and I'll be right here with you along the way, ready to report and enjoy the results, the outcome of what happens, and that day that we get to see Tiffany Henyard in court in front of a judge, where we will be able to see how she acts in comparison to how she has been acted out in those village hall meetings. That's all I've got for now. Stay tuned for future updates. I'm going to be pounding it out. And until then, I would absolutely love it if you would like, comment, and subscribe to Go Political channel. Tell a friend. Post this video on X. Let's get the discussion going. The more you share, the more we're heard, and the more the work that we do as content creators can help move the needle in the right direction for the residents of Dolton. All right. Hope you enjoyed this one. This is Carlton, and I am out.